guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about a new study showing that with women becoming more affluent and attending college more, and men looking for other options just because college has become too expensive, too woke, too anti-male, and guys are looking and saying, look, I don't want to go, $100,000 into debt. I'm just going to go into the workforce because there's a lot of good options available that'll start paying me right away versus going to college. And there's a couple of studies that talk about this making what they call a mating crisis, which is women will not date down. They refuse to. They're only looking for college guys. And with less college guys out there, more and more women are either just sleeping around and having fun. They refuse to settle down with a guy that they feel is quote unquote beneath them. And it's going to lead probably to either an eventual collapse or societal destruction, just because men that do not have family and women and things that they care about, they end up either getting involved in crime a little bit or just not being as productive as they could, not going out there and doing the high-paying or dangerous jobs, and there's not enough people to keep things going. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Before we get started, guys, please remember, go over and follow me on Better Bachelor over at Rumble, or join me on betterbachelor.locals.com. 3 of my last 5 videos over here on YouTube have been demonetized. I didn't use any bad language. I didn't criticize anybody. They weren't super controversial, but YouTube is just, now that they have, I guess, the new CEO stepping in, they're starting to change what we can and can't talk about. And I'm tired of censoring my words and my topics and everything else. So I'm still going to talk about that stuff. I'm just not going to talk about it here on YouTube anymore. So you guys are going to, again, kind of get a little bit of something to whet your appetite. And I hope you enjoy it. But I can't get it. There's a ton of topics I just can't talk about because Big Mama, or Big Daddy, I guess, now that Wojcicki has stepped down, Big Daddy YouTube won't let us talk about it. So from the College Post, this is a little bit older article, a couple years ago, but this is kind of the main theme that we're going to be running with this article, which is a professor warns that there's a mating crisis growing as men skip college. New York University professor warns that as fewer men and more women in the U.S. are going to college, mating inequality will widen, causing serious economic and societal problems. Scott Galloway, a marketing professor at NYU's Stern School of Business, told CNN that a mating crisis could be unavoidable if men continue skipping college. He explained that women tend to be drawn more to successful men with college degrees. Now, that's not always the case, but if a lot of women are going to college, they instantly assume that any man that doesn't have an equal or better degree is dumber. A guy that isn't working based on a degree, but rather with his hands or manual labor or in the trades is not making very much money. They automatically judge you. But in the same token, is it worth a guy going to college? And I've got some numbers from college, and the cost of it only to come out and then be instantly 100, 200 grand in the hole for something that actually doesn't pay as well as the trades in many cases. They say 2 in 3 relationships start on Tinder. 50 men, 50 women, 46 women show all their attention to just 4 men. And what do those 4 have? They signal success with a college degree, Galloway said. What he didn't say is they also are probably tall, probably good looking, probably athletic, probably the top 5. Well, I mean, out of 50 men, if they just want 5, that's the top 10%. So, it kind of falls in line with what we talk about here all the time. He says real numbers, real consequences. The Independent reported that 60% of current college students are women, while 40% are men, compared to 1970, when 60% were men and 40% were women. Men are also submitting fewer college applications and dropping out at a greater rate. The most dangerous person in the world is a broke and lone male, and we're producing too many of them. The mating inequality that's going to come out of this dearth of men in college poses an existential risk to our economy and our society, Galloway said. Now, this is 2 years ago. So, I mean, you guys have heard over the last 2 years, how much more positive they speak about men. And are trying to bolster us up and encourage us to become good, strong members of society, right? You do remember that, because I don't. I do remember them now ramping up everything that say that we're misogynistic and toxic and angry and bitter and blah, 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 blah. And now it's in the movies and everything else. Well, women can do everything. Women can do everything. So you know what? We will become the working class. It's like in the time machine. I forget the two different, and I know one of you guys will tell me down below. It's the two difference. There were the people that were the intelligent and the ones that lived on the surface, and then there were the dwellers underneath that would come up and eat and snack on the surface dwellers every once in a while, and they'd live in the subterranean ground. We'll just be the bottom dwellers. We'll live underground in our little man caves. We'll come up for groceries and to sneer at the world and go back underground. In the meantime, while we're also doing trucking or welding or plumbing or, all the things that actually are necessary to keep a society running. You don't need a whole lot of gender study degrees to keep society going. But good luck to the girls that have those and think they're better than everybody else. He warned that most unstable and violent societies in the world have all have men who refuse to attach themselves to school, work, or relationships. And I can see some. I mean, if you look now, there's a lot of people that are really struggling with caring. The crime has gone up. Things are not going so well. But what's interesting is a lot of the people that are protesting and are raging against the machine and capitalism and everything else, they seem to be very attached to school, relationships, and certain groups. So I don't know, maybe the lone male is not such a bad danger after all. They have one more thing in common. They have young, depressed men who aren't attached to work, aren't attached to school. Inability to provide the resources and encourage men to go to college is going to result in us producing too many of the most dangerous cohorts in the world. We become a danger at that point because we have nothing to lose. And when we have nothing to lose, they can't threaten us with taking anything away. In the movies, when you see like super spies or double agents and all this stuff, it's very important that those agents, and in many movies you'll hear this, where there's nobody that they love and they don't have any family and they're loners. Why? Because that can't be held against them. They can't have the bad guy go after their family or loved ones or their wife or whatever and say, oh, well, we've got your loved one, and if you don't do what we want. So I think what they really fear is, yes, there will be collapse because there's a lot of men that are necessary and are needed. But the other thing is they can't control us anymore. They can't tell us what to do. We're not out there being good providers for a family and everybody else, so we're kind of left to our own devices. And I think a lot of guys like it that way. A lot of guys that might have in the past gone out and tried to earn $60, $70, $80, $100,000 a year and been a real hard worker and given much of his life away for a salary to take care of a family. Now he says, you know what, I can get by on 30 or 40 grand. I'm not a purchaser anymore. I'm not buying into the system. I'm going to get a little patch of land. I'll live off grid. I'll live very low key, and I'll work less and enjoy my life more. That is a threat to the machine, especially when they need our taxes and our income and our money and everything else to make the machine run. He says the root of the problem. Galloway said that the cost of college has been a factor in the growing problem. Since men have more career opportunities to earn money without a college degree, they choose that route instead of pursuing an education. You can walk into a construction site in Florida. You can turn on an app. Cop, fireman, trade job, which at the age of 18, you can make 100 to 200 a day. That feels like real cabbage. Well, it is real cabbage. That is real money. And this is another article. I won't read all the way down through it here, but they're saying, fewer young people are going to college because they just say it costs too much. And it is. And the problem, when we have President Biden going out there and writing checks for $40 billion to the college institutions because of the lockdowns, notice, yes, he did give some stimulus to the people. But when he gave that money to the colleges, did the colleges drop their price? No. Did any of the financing stuff change? No. So to go to college, they have some statistics in here I'll read, but to go to college, it is so expensive right now that people are getting into debt, and the loans that they take out for this college debt, it cannot be written off by bankruptcy. It's linked to you forever. The stat I wanted to read out of this is they were saying that a recent survey of high school students found the likelihood of attending a four-year college sank nearly 20% in the last 8 months, down to 53% from 71%. Now, that's all people. That's all people, males and females. But if men are the smaller portion that's already signing up for college, they're going to be, I would say, continuing on the trend, especially when you go in there and you get, a bunch of woke crap shoved down your throat. And if you really want to be a free thinker and use your mind and have discussions about topics, you can't anymore. All you have to do is see what all the protests are about, and it's always one-sided. They say more than half said they can achieve professional success with 3 years or less of college, and just 1/4 believe a four-year degree is the only route to a good job. ECMC Group polled that more than 1,000 high school students 3 times over the last year, so that's 3,000. And you can see here that, look at the cost, and this is unadjusted. This is unadjusted for inflation. And you can see, here, it's, you were talking back, and I know when I was in college, when I went to go take college, for my local college, I could take it was a 2-year college. I could take a year of college for about $4,000, double it, $8,000. Then you would take that, and you would move into, 4-year if you wanted to at that point. But the problem is now what they're doing is they're saying, a lot of these credits don't transfer over. You're going to have to take these courses over again, or you're going to have to redo this or redo that. And you end up almost having to redo your first 4 years of college again. Not in all cases, but depending on what you take, there might be a few classes that don't transfer over, and then you got to pay for that at the expensive college. See, that's the grift that they got. But if you look at a 4-year college here, unadjusted for inflation, it's almost $40,000 per year. I think that's what they're saying is this is based on per year. Yeah, it's per year. And somewhere in here, I think they were saying that it's almost $50,000 a year now, right? Let me see if I can find the number. I don't see it off the top of my head. But anyway, they were saying like the average, it's almost $50,000 a year in some of these very, very high prestigious colleges. And I think they were saying that in some cases, just to get a 4-year degree period, here it is right here, tuition and fees plus room and board for a 4-year private college averaged $50,000 in the 2020-2021 school year. At a 4-year in-state public colleges, it was $22,000. So that means that for a 4-year degree, you're looking at $88,000 to $200,000. No wonder young people say, well, we can't buy houses or anything. And here's a video I have. This talked about 3 different students, but I want you to see this young guy, because he at 18 is like, hey, I'm going to go be a welder or plumber, and I'm going to learn a trade. For those of you listening, it's a guy holding a welder to a copper pipe.
People go to college and dropping out, not making it, and they were getting degrees that they weren't even using, outside in the real world. So in my eyes, it just wasn't necessary for me to go.
His hat says dirty hands, clean money. Good on you, young man. Oh, and also something else I want to mention here. Notice the guys he's working with. Not a girl to be seen. Not a feminist in the room. It's a bunch of guys, good old boys that you'd probably have a beer with after a day's work, probably telling dirty jokes and being funny and being relaxed and just enjoying it. And I think more people want this camaraderie. They don't want all the crap shoved down their throat. They just want to go. Guys just want to go, use their hands, use their brains, make some money, maybe get a little dirty. They're fine with that. Hang out with the fellas. And then go home. Maybe go have a cold one after work and then go home. And that's what these guys are doing.
Because once COVID came about, that they didn't grade anymore. So I just went to work, and I worked 6 to 7 days a week. Senior year, we were online for 2 days and in school for 3 days. I don't know. It wasn't necessarily for me, I guess. I didn't have an interest in it. That's what I like about here is that you're bettering yourself for, real life experiences, where there I didn't necessarily think that.
And that's pretty key, I think, is that, he feels like he's doing something useful. He feels like he's doing a job that he enjoys. He's hanging out with guys that are kind of have the same mindset as him. I think more and more men are discovering this. And here's the thing, when things go really bad, everybody suffers. But you're still going to need welders and pipe fitters and plumbers and electricians and carpenters. Maybe with construction, new construction falling off, the need may be much, much less, and there may be a surplus of workers. But what do you think happens to all the Karens in HR? Do you think they're going to be hanging around? And I've heard from guys before when I talk about this stuff, and guys will say, "Oh, but I want to be a network engineer. You can get a certification from like Cisco, and I think the one that I got was like $5,000. And I actually was working for Cisco at the time that I got paid that. And so when I got my certification, I put a deposit on it, then I paid for it, and then after I had it, Cisco paid me back for it. But I got my first job, which was around $40,000 a year, $45,000 a year. All I knew was Linux. I didn't even, and I studied the OSI model a little bit so I could interview and kind of make sense when I was doing that stuff, and it got me an entry-level job in tech, which was $45,000 a year. Then after you get your certification, whether it's in networking, whether it's in security, whether it's in something else, then you get your bumps up. Then you can move up through. It's kind of like an apprentice program, just like this young guy's going through. The difference is you're making a good paycheck while you're learning. The ways of college now, where really you're not learning anything if you pay attention to the way that some of these colleges are going, they want to talk about DEI and diversity and all this other stuff. They're really not teaching you a lot of the things that you actually need to go forward and to become successful. Or maybe a better way is if you do want to go to college, go like this young man's doing. Now, he says he's working 6-7 days a week, probably making maybe $20-25 an hour as an apprentice, doing plumbing and welding and other things like that. If your dream is college someday, don't rush right into it. I didn't take a lot of my classes until I was in my 30s. Now, granted, I didn't get an upper degree, but I did start retaking some classes. And what I realized is I really didn't need college, other than what you end up doing in many cases is writing a check for $100,000 for a piece of paper. But for me, it wasn't worth it. So I just kind of tapped out of it. But if you really wanted to do that, instead of working 6 or 7 days a week, work 4 or 5 and then take a couple of classes. It might take you a few extra years, but you might also discover there's a vocation out there that you really enjoy that doesn't have to involve, the college degree. So I think this is not only is this going to be bad for women and dating, I think guys are going to be happier not working in the white collar kind of woke work world and working with your hands and getting dirty, because you're not going to find a bunch of Karens there giving you a hard time. I got a couple more. I probably got 3 or 4 more videos to go over that is kind of crazy, funny stuff. I'm not doing them on YouTube. Screw YouTube. But you can do it. You can find it over on betterbachelor.local.com, because I'm the only moderator over there. So no one can tell me what I can or can't put over there except for me. So make sure to join us over there today for the rest of the content.